Oh my god. You have to see this. Before we start, I need to highlight something. We're getting some React content. I know that my chat always loves to have some React content available. So here we go. There we go. So the title of this video is Tomi Lahren wishes Krystal Ball good luck with socialism. From, I guess this is just the name of Tomi Lahren's channel. I would have thought this was like a random clips channel. Look at this like to dislike ratio, bro. 1.4k likes, 6.2k dislikes. And this is on her channel. This is home court advantage for her. Like, with her audience. Now, granted, a lot of the dislikes and comments that all say that, like, Tomi Lahren got dogged in this interview, are coming from the perspective of progressives who came in to, like, hate bomb the video or whatever. But that is still a useful metric to see a breakdown like this, because you have to perform pretty fucking poorly in a conversation for your video to be this vulnerable to people to come and be like, wow, you fucking sucked. You know, if you're like a major political figure, you know, like me, some no-name content creator, nobody watches me. So like if 1,000 Nazis see my video and just decide to hate bomb it, as has happened before, that's not necessarily indicative of the content of the video, right? It's just indicative that 1,000 losers had nothing better to do with their time. But these are actually like big name people. I mean, Tomi Lahren is pretty washed up, but like notorious individuals from the left and the right politically, respectively. Anyways, hopefully I don't get copyright nuked for this. Let's have a listen to how badly Tomi Lahren gets her shit rocked in a rhetorical sense.
Mamdani fan or not.
Oh, hold on. Give me back to the beginning. There we go.
I don't know if you're a Mamdani fan or not, but you are a big fan of Mamdani?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, you are? Okay. So he wants to provide $65 million for gender-affirming care.
I mean, Tommy, I think everyone should get healthcare. So yes, I think trans people should get healthcare as well.
I hope that...
Nice. Okay, so we have a little bit of a highlight reel to start. Certified Mamdani fan, Mamdani enjoyer even. We're all eating good tonight. Here, let me mute my side. There we go.
You guys stick with that, and I hope that Mamdani is your poster child, and I hope that you run on it. I'm not going to give you any feedback because I too hope that that is the direction that you go. If you...
She thinks she's being coy, but she's not. There's a kind of thinly veiled sting that she doesn't even do a good job of like veiling. It's like, oh yeah, I hope you guys go with Mamdani, because conservatives think that Mamdani would be like an easy target for them. But in truth, Mamdani is basically the new most popular politician on the left. Everybody loves him. The Democrats hate him, the Republicans hate him, people generally love him because he's willing to offer a compelling narrative of how New York, and by extension, like America, if you take what he's trying to do in New York, you apply it maybe to another city, it's generally like a narrative about how we should make the city better. You know? It's not this apathetic, technocratic bullshit that Democrats usually offer. And she thinks that it's like, oh yeah, haha, it'd be easy for us to beat Mamdani, so I hope you guys go with Mamdani. After Mamdani whooped Cuomo's ass in the primary.
If you review his policy proposals, you'll see this is not some like dyed-in-the-wool ideologue.
Best of luck with the Democrat socialist endeavor in America.
Great, thank you.
That's been unleashed against us.
So when we say Donald Trump is a fascist, fascism, a huge component of fascism is uniting racism, bigotry, a form of racism.
This isn't the conversation. What's going on? No, it's the whole fucking fascist rhetoric and definitions. Oh, okay. This is like the obligatory well poisoning. I'm gonna skip this. I think. Yeah, how long is this? This is 3. Okay, I don't need to listen to 3 extra minutes of yet another fascist Barbie talking at me. So I'm gonna get to the part where Krystal Ball shows up because she's great.
Krystal Ball. Krystal, it's so great to have you. I want to have the discussion. I know that you tweet a lot about it, and I'm very interested to hear if you think President Trump is a fascist, and if you think that I, by definition, as a conservative, am also a fascist.
I don't think everyone who supports President Trump is a fascist.
I actually, before we even continue with that, sorry, I have to pause and look at something really quick. 24 floors, and then a midway point, and then like one more floor. Okay. I understand what I'm getting into a little bit better now.
I do think that President Trump is a fascist, though, and I'll give you a perfect example, Tommy. It's kind of an awkward day for you to give this spiel because Trump is speaking to all the generals today in Quantico, and he just said that he's going to use the military against the enemy within, which is part and parcel of what he's been doing with deploying the National Guard in cities across the country. So when you ask about definition of fascism, the president really sort of gave his own definition of fascism today. I know.
Yeah, true. You know, me when I'm definitely not a fascist, using military force to crack down on political opposition, after my campaign platform was largely defined by vitriolic opposition to immigration as a concept. You know, not beating the fascist allegations. You know, the very, very, shall we say, abundant use of state violence through the military against you know, political opposition.
You want to agree with that, but
yeah,
let me just make a broader point here.
Yeah, I want to dive into.
Well, let me just make a broader point here because, you know, I think as someone who came from a side that did a lot of tone policing and, by the way, called out people who were policing rhetoric and doing the whole cancel culture thing, I would really caution you from going down this path, especially as someone who, you know, is a commentator, uses your words for a living. I know in the past I did a little bit of research. You called people who were enforcing mask protocols Nazis. President Trump has, of course, used his language.
I think this is the moment where you can pretty reasonably see that Tomi Lahren is fucked in this interview, because Krystal is the type of person to actually do their homework before going on an interview like this, which is honestly, her and Kyle Kalinske are super good at that, and I like am not as good at that comparatively. Like, I don't know, they're really smart and they know what homework to do for this. If you're like studying for a debate against modern conservatives, that's like kind of overkill. But at the same time, it's also a good indication that it's like, oh yeah, I know all of your positions on such and such. I'm going to dig up some shit from fucking 3 months ago that you said and ask if you still believe this. And whatever else, you know? Which, if you did actually believe in something, you would either be able to own up to the fact that you believe something, or be like, no, you know what? I don't believe that anymore. I've actually changed my mind, you know? But the right wing is composed overwhelmingly of dishonest pieces of shit, so they can't do either of those. So asking them, yeah, do you believe such and such, is like honestly one of the biggest gotchas that you can, well, gotcha. I mean, like, it puts conservatives in that gotcha position, but it's like for a normal person, asking what they believe would be like normal. So anyways, this is just me getting a little bit giddy because Krystal Ball's about to lay her out rhetorically. By the way, I don't think there's like, I don't know how much we're gonna learn from this. The value in this is basically, I want to participate in Tomi Lahren's humiliation ritual from having done this conversation and it having gone so poorly that most major progressive like online news channels and shows were talking about it. We're talking about how, like, you know, oh yeah, she got pretty showed up on her own show by Krystal Ball.
in quite aggressive ways, including calling Kamala Harris and others fascist, radical leftists, communists, et cetera, et cetera. Do I think that that was inciting violence against Kamala Harris? Do I think you were inciting violence against people who were enforcing mask mandates? No. So I think we have to really maintain this commitment to First Amendment free speech, even in the face of incredible crackdowns from this administration in ways that are truly extraordinary and quite dystopian.
I would love to hear about the First Amendment crackdowns from this administration and what you would classify those as. But I want to go back to President Trump this morning. And again,
wait, okay.
I know that.
Hold on.
I would love to hear.
I feel like that's. God, sorry. Sometimes my memory is like that of a goldfish, but I feel like this was a pivot.
Commitment to First Amendment free speech, even in the face of incredible crackdowns from this administration in ways that are truly extraordinary and quite dystopian.
I would love to hear about the First Amendment crackdowns from this administration and what you would classify those as. But I want to go back to President Trump this morning. And again,
oh no, okay. This is they were just talking about his speech to the generals, right?
I know that the liberals, I know that you all love it when he says something and it's like, oh my God, this is the definition. He's going to use the military against us. Well, I would argue it's well within his rights to use the National Guard in D.C. And D.C. is a pretty great place right now, by all accounts, because of his use of the National.
Okay. Arguing that a president is within their rights to do something does not in any way refute the argument that it is fascistic to do said thing. Right? The fascist takeover of Germany was in many ways quite legalistic. The Nazis broke a lot of laws. They also followed a lot of laws in taking over power in the government. In fact, some of the most heinous shit that they did on their rise to power, and also like in the construction of the death camps and whatever, a lot of that was legal. They were within their rights according to German law to do that. There's a lot of stuff, as much as Trump is like violating the Constitution, which is bad from like a stability perspective. You know, usually if you have a legal document that's supposed to be a guiding force in a political entity, it's not good if you very frequently disregard that, because it kind of speaks to a complete lack of cohesion in politics. But at the same time, if you follow the law in a specific way to achieve a fascistic objective, that's still fascism. You're just doing it within the bounds of the law. The argument here was not such and such is illegal, even though I'm positive that well, actually, I've read the Constitution, so I know that there are like certain military deployment into the states for certain periods of time could violate the Quartering Act. And in fact, using the military to crack down on free speech, even though this shit happens all the time, even in liberal democracies, that is a violation of your right to free expression, because people having broken no law are being arrested based on the expression of a political belief, you know? Whether it be the cops or the military doing that, you know? So she's not even smart enough to understand the argument being made here, because the conservatives are so law and order brained that's like bad equals illegal and illegal equals bad. Legitimately, it's like the kind of brain fart that you would accuse a caricature of a liberal for engaging in. But remember, fascists are just liberals, but worse.
National Guard there to keep people safe. Mostly black and brown people, I would add. But also, when you are deploying troops...
Wow, woke fascism? You see, actually, Sweaty, we had to deploy the military to D.C. because of all the crime that was affecting black and brown communities and folks of color or something.
Protect federal agents and federal buildings, you're also well within your right. That's not authoritarian. It's if you want to have Antifa lighting the street.
Again, something being within your rights as a government or as a executive in said government does not mean said thing is not authoritarian. You know? legal does not necessarily equal good. Illegal does not necessarily equal bad. Not always. Again, brain failure.
Streets on fire and terrorizing people in these cities, President Trump is going to protect his agents, and he's going to protect federal assets. So I don't know what part of that you think is authoritarian. To me, it's just, if you guys want to...
The part where you use the military to militarily occupy a city that already has a governing structure, and that didn't fucking ask for that. In fact, even if a city did ask for that, I would consider it pretty authoritarian to have the military occupying a city domestically. You know? And if I'm being particularly anarchist brained, the existence of militaries as a concept is a pretty authoritarian thing, because what do militaries exist to do? Exert lethal force against political opponents, foreign or domestic. That's pretty authoritarian. That's kind of bad, I would say. But you know, especially it's especially visibly like there's nothing else that could even be happening. Like I don't feel like I need to address the factual claim that DC is not like overridden by crime, because conservatives lie as easily as they breathe, and that's something that's so easily searchable on the internet. Like crime statistics for DC, it's like not. It's not actually that bad over there. You'd have have a much higher crime rate in any given American small town than in a city as large as DC. That's kind of how cities work.
Play stupid games, we're going to make sure that we have our federal assets protected. Would you rather they just be out there and be attacked by Molotov cocktails and bottles and...
Again, making up shit that like isn't happening. It's... I can tell that Krystal like isn't gonna fall for this. There used to be a time when a lot more people on the left would actually buy into this framing of like, oh well, you're saying they should just be pelleted with bottles and Molotovs, which first of all, the answer is yes. If that were happening, the answer would be yes. If you've seen the protests that go on in France, so, you know, light work, no reaction. But then also, like, nobody believes that that's happening.
Things being lit on fire around them, buildings being lit on fire. I mean, is that your preferred course?
Well, first of all, I would say I don't think you should believe everything that you see on Fox News, Tommy, because that is not the reality in any of these cities, and I spend quite a bit of time in Washington, D.C. Second of all, you know, local law enforcement... Oh, that's true.
Krystal and Kyle, I think, are based either in Virginia or somewhere around there. They're relatively close to the DC area, so they can go through there. And of course, because conservatives like think that data is Jewish or whatever, or like data is made by woke black women or something like that, they don't believe in the scientific process as a concept for gathering information. So they're much more susceptible to arguments from personal experience. And I mean, if you've gone through DC, you know, like there's actually like, not only is there not really any like rampant crime happening or whatever. I've been to DC. It's kind of like really spread out, and there's not like that much happening generally. I mean, there's people out and about because DC is the capital. And there's museums and stuff. But you know, again, American city, cars, etc., etc. People not walking around that much. Something. You get what I'm saying, you know? Basically, conservatives are stupid and don't understand data and reject data as a concept, so arguments from personal experience work. And so, since Krystal has personal experience of being in DC, like, relatively often compared to, I imagine, most Americans, she can very easily say, like, that hasn't been my experience. DC's, like, it's DC. There's not really much crime there. I've been there.
Exists for a reason, and there's a reason why we have a separation between civilian local law enforcement and the military. The military is trained to go after enemies. Do you see the American people as the enemy? Because that's the way that President Trump is framing this. He
Krystal,
is saying
in DC,
the enemy
National
within
Guard
is the
going
American
after you?
people.
In the National Guard in DC, have they gone after you? Have they militarized?
Have they gone after me specifically?
Or have they gone after anybody? Can you give me an example of where the National Guard in DC has hurt an American civilian or has been militarized against an American citizen? Because they've been there for what now, a couple months?
So now it's shifted from this is authoritarian. I guess in her mind, authoritarianism is only when the military is actively arresting you and, like, I don't know, putting you in Guantanamo Bay or something. So now we've shifted from, oh, it's not illegal to do this. It's not authoritarian to do this because it's like, it's legal or whatever, to now, yeah, well, has the National Guard, like, actually assaulted anybody the way that the cops would or something like that? And again, that wasn't the argument.
I haven't seen any example of where the National Guard has overstepped their boundaries or authority or done anything that would qualify as like this militarized authoritarian rule. I haven't seen it. Maybe you have.
Yeah, so I think there's a fair point that you're making there, which is that because we have the Posse Comitatus Act, you cannot actually engage in civilian law enforcement. A lot of what they've done is to back up ICE agents, so we can have a whole separate conversation about the aggressive abuses there and the way that American people feel that that has gone way too far in a way that has been aggressively violent. A lot of what they have done in DC is frankly like a waste of taxpayer dollars, picking up trash and just standing around. However,
that's true. We saw this with the protests in LA earlier in the year as well. Protests against, like, I think it was a protest outside of an ICE facility to which the National Guard was deployed, and the National Guard not having the authority to do much and also having the training to not shoot people or arrest them on site, and also, like, again, not having the authority to do that even if they wanted to, just sort of stood around and did fuck all and cost millions upon millions of dollars, by the way. Moving the National Guard around is expensive because they are a part of the military, which means military equipment and military transport and that sort of stuff, which means doing business with a million different military contractors. So every time they mobilize the National Guard to be somewhere, it's just like, well, there's tens or hundreds of millions of dollars down the drain again for no fucking reason, Like, legit, the National Guard had so little to do in DC that there's some pretty humorous clips of them, like, wearing the orange and yellow vests and picking up trash in the parks. Because it's like, the fuck else are they gonna do? They can't arrest people. They can't, basically, the National Guard is not permitted by law to, and the command structure is not willing to engage in the kinds of abuses of people's rights that the administration wants them to, and thus would be sending them places to do that. But they can't do that and also won't do that. So they just kind of sit on their thumbs. And, pick up trash, I guess. Which could theoretically make this the least efficient community service program of all time.
That doesn't mean that we should accept the image and normalize having military soldiers, and in LA, they use active duty Marines in our streets. Furthermore, what is probably even more troubling and has gotten a lot less attention is Trump just signed this new national security memorandum that effectively labels anyone who opposes him and his views as a potential domestic terrorist.
That's true.
Now that does come.
That was NSPM 7. Did they?
Him and his memorandum that effectively labels.
That's how you know she's smart. She accurately identified it as a memorandum and not an executive order. Yeah, this is shout outs to Ken Klippenstein. That's another thing that happened while I was out. NSPM 7. Now, if you are a leftist or any sort of left conviction in politics, government has automatically decided that you are a potential domestic terrorist and will subject you to increase amounts of state scrutiny with state resources, state investigative offices, and that sort of thing. I want to get at least to, I think, floor 10 or so without any of my move usages running out. So I'm going to try to get my teammates to do some of the legwork here.
Anyone who opposes him and his views as a potential domestic terrorist. Now that does come with actual federal resources that can do a lot more than just like pick up trash and sort of stand around while ICE does whatever they want to do.
Yeah.
So you're right.
I need to just let her cook, because she said basically what I said was, that's going to put meaningful scrutiny on people.
DC, in Chicago, so what we've seen so far, a lot of this is like fascist theater. But it is meant to intimidate. It is meant to send a message
thugs and
that
felons,
political opposition.
Thugs and felons. Very, again, this is something that used to work more, but doesn't, like, nowadays, because, like, nobody buys it anymore. So it's just, like, a weak kind of interjection. Like, in fact, that's what she's describing. That, like, oh, yeah, this now gives like some sort of legalistic or procedural justification for deeming all political opposition as criminals, and Tomi Lahren is like, yeah, the political opposition are criminals. It's like, that's what I'm arguing this thing says,
will not be tolerated.
And then she just goes back to
put it together, Tomi. I genuinely want to ask you this question. Like, is there nothing that he's done that you feel like, it's a little too far? Like, we've had the tariffs, which have been wild and unilaterally imposed. We've got Palantir getting contracts to surveil anyone and everyone they want to. We have people being sent to a foreign gulag with zero due process. We have National Guard being deployed in...
I love evil things. This is why you can't debate conservatives, because it's like, yeah, the administration doesn't fucking care about due process. They're deporting American, like, legal residents and citizens and whatever. And she's like, yeah, I love it. Damn, bitch, you just like suffering. Fuck you. This is, again, if you have a conversation in real life with a conservative, if they're a family member, this is the point at which you disown them, or if not, this is the point where you, like, hit them with a rock as hard as you can or something. In Minecraft. Not in real life. Don't actually do that. But you know what I mean. It's like a complete... just like, yeah, I am gleefully evil. That's what this is. Unironically, the only time Hillary Clinton cooked was when she made that point that conservatives are just gleefully evil.
City after city after city. You have American citizens. I mean,
city after city after city.
If you saw this video.
Which cities has he deployed now?
Funny she should ask this question. Chicago, what was it? It wasn't Memphis, right? Was it Memphis? It was one of the bigger cities in Tennessee, and then Portland now, I think.
National Guard too, besides protecting
LA,
federal...
DC, Memphis,
okay, and
Portland.
It was Memphis. LA, DC, Memphis, Chicago, Portland, city after city after city.
Tennessee. We invited him to Tennessee. Governor invited him to come clean up the streets of Memphis because they desperately need the help. So this is, I'm genuinely curious. It
doesn't matter if the governor invites the National Guard. Again, she's intentionally missing the point. Is it like the military occupying a domestic region is pretty authoritarian just on its own, regardless of whether, like, oh great, the state government invited them. I wonder what the people of that state had to do with that decision, huh? Probably fuck all, So the mini president invited the bigger president to send the military to occupy their region? Damn, that's crazy. Tell me more about how that's, like, not authoritarian or something?
But Tomi, can you respond to the question though? None of this you feel this is a little too far.
No.
policing comedians' monologues, right?
He's not
using lawsuits to threaten media, consolidating media in the hands of his allies.
I know that you're not trying to allege that Jimmy Kimmel or Colbert were taken off the air because of President Trump.
In part, they were. It was mostly I don't think Trump himself ordered. Trump himself didn't say, I want Kimmel off the air or something. I don't remember exactly how it went down with Colbert, but yeah, it has a lot to do with Trump because, what was it, ABC? And whatever's the company that does Colbert wanted a favorable relationship with the Trump administration, so they self-censored. They went out of their way to be like, oh, here, let's remove this political opposition commentator from the airwaves in the hopes of gaining favor with Trump, which theoretically that would do because they are, political opposition. People that Trump doesn't like. It didn't end up working out. But ultimately, the soft power of the Trump administration, and the hard power as well, but the soft power was felt not just through any abstraction, but the very real fact that the administration has the power to deny the mergers or whatever that they were looking at. So, but again, that's way more complicated of an explanation that you would ever get through to a bitch like Tomi Lahren. We got your W dumb bitches, your L dumb bitches. This is one of the latter. Yeah, I don't know. Probably she's gonna mention just how the FCC chair literally commented about how Jimmy Kimmel should be taken off the air, and then it just kind of happened.
They obviously were. I mean, Kimmel in particular. Colbert, you could make another argument about. But the FCC commissioner came out and said we could do this the easy way or the hard way. And next thing you know, Disney pulls the plug. Why? Because they know that this president weaponizes the federal government against his adversaries. They're worried about their business deals because the backlash was so severe. Look, these people don't care about anything about their bottom line. I hope you agree with that. And they saw more than 1.7 million Disney customers cancel their Disney Plus subscriptions. So they were like, oh, we've got an even bigger problem here. But there is zero doubt that the intention is to chill speech, to make anyone who opposes this president think twice before they do that. That's what the university crackdowns are about. That's what the legal crackdowns are about. That's what kidnapping students off the street for writing an op-ed, that's what that's about. That's what the National Guard in the street is about. And that's what him saying to these generals today, we have to use the military against the enemy within. So you may not like the term fascist. You may not like it when it's thrown around by Democrats. You had no problem with it when it was thrown around by Trump, by the way. But that is, in fact, the accurate description of what we're seeing here. And so I have no problem with people trying to accurately describe the situation that they're experiencing in their own country.
Do you think that I have so many questions for you? That whole thing like democracy under attack, dictator on day one, that worked so well for you guys in November of last.
This is not a refutation of anything that Krystal just said. She's just, what she's doing here, God, these people are such fucking morons. She's like, yeah, well, we won now, so we have power, and I'm gonna say we can use that power against you now. Yeah, no shit. That's kind of what they're exactly talking about here.
Last year, I'm actually shocked that you're still using it and you think that it's working on the American people.
Also, the assumption that the absolute projection. This is interesting. That everybody is just as vacuous of belief as her, because it seems like she's kind of given up at this. Well, she might not have given up completely because there's more to the video. I actually don't even know if I'm going to watch the full thing. I might come back to it even. That she's now going to, oh yeah, well that strategy didn't work out for you guys, and yet you're still, talking about it. Well, it's not a political strategy per se, it's a belief that you have. Legitimately, in this respect, Tomi Lahren is more similar to the Democrats than myself or Krystal, because she only thinks about this in terms of like, no, of course we don't actually believe anything. We'll just say whatever's convenient to the moment, you know? And I do mean convenient rather than relevant, you know? Like your beliefs will change on a dime.
It didn't, and
but
it's
Tomi,
not.
Not everything is about a poll, right? Some things are about like.
Shit! All right, there I go again. I just need to let Krystal talk. Go off, Queen. Spit your shit.
You actually have a principle, and you actually care
Well,
about protecting First Amendment.
No, keep doing it. If you guys think that, though, that's
Tomi,
fine.
This is, to me,
Krystal,
one of the best things about America. Is
I do
my
too.
ability and your ability to say what we think. You know, and I know you've been critical at times of Trump. I'm sure you'd like to preserve the ability to be so. I'm sure you'd like,
of course,
if there's
and
a
I don't
future
think that I
Gavin
have any
Newsom
danger
or
of losing my
AOC
ability
administration.
to do it. Yeah, I don't think that.
But do you worry? Do you worry about the turnabout, though?
No, I don't.
Do you worry that when it's an AOC or a Gavin Newsom?
Okay. This rhetorical line obviously is like watertight or whatever, because like it's obviously like, well, yeah, but like if you support this power now, obviously it's like you would be unprincipled if this power was like used against you in the future. The problem is, number one, Tomi Lahren doesn't care, and number two, I think she recognizes there's no real credible threat of the Democrats really doing anything. Unfortunately, you know, if I had my way, Democrats would be doing fucking Reconstruction too. They'd be all up in the Fox News offices. They'd be suing the shit out of every conservative news network. All right, you guys actually have to adhere to a set of facts that is commonly agreed upon, and there have to actually be journalistic standards again. You can't just like constantly air shit that is demonstrably false all the time, you know? But the Democrats would never do that, because that would require a spine. And in that respect, they are, in fact, just like Tomi Lahren. I've kind of alternated back and forth between Tomi and Tomi. I don't know which one is correct. I think it's Tomi.
That you're going to be the one put it on the domestic terror watch list, because that's what's happening right now.
Krystal. So if you did a little bit more research, you would know that your guy, AutoPen, actually did pressure social media companies to deplatform me, to move me down in the algorithm.
Wait, I got deplatformed for COVID misinformation. No, bitch. Well, yes, bitch, actually. But that wasn't the government. That was, the platform itself. You violated the terms of service that you had to sign in order to use the website. Sorry. This is basically, it would be kind of like, in more short form, it would be like you said the N-word and then got banned from YouTube and complained that the government banned you from YouTube. No, bitch, you got banned by YouTube for engaging in shit that violates terms of service. In this case, got deplatformed from, I think she's referring to Twitter, for peddling COVID disinfo. Because that was against terms of service. Tough shit. You know? Hey, just like she argued that the president is within their rights to send the National Guard somewhere, a social media company is also within their rights to ban a user for behavior that runs against terms of service. And in this case, that is infinitely more defensible than whatever the fuck the Trump administration was thinking about, you know, like sending the National Guard places. Like, you got banned, it wasn't the government, and that's for the better, actually. Get fucked.
If you did a little bit of research, you would know that I complained and protested against those sorts of actions. I have been consistent in saying we should not have a ministry of truth.
This is an actual
government
example.
Should not be involved. Hold on. Government should not be involved in pressuring social media companies to cancel. What the Biden administration did, as revealed in the Twitter files and the Hunter Biden laptop suppression, I spoke out against all of that. So you can't get me on that crap.
Well, I'm glad that you did.
That is nothing compared to the way that this administration...
I would even, like, I even differ from Krystal in this respect, because I'm glad that, like, you know, I'm glad that there was just any effort at all to combat misinformation during a fucking pandemic when that misinformation was directly getting more people killed by disease than already were dying, you know? Legitimately, it was like the one use case where such an entity to basically monitor disinformation was like warranted. And to my knowledge, they just said like, hey, Twitter, this kind of misinformation is making the pandemic worse, and it's like inhibiting our recovery efforts or something like that. It was like, compared to the kind of shit that the Trump administration doing and what companies are now doing to self-censor, I think it was like pretty light-handed in comparison. I could be wrong though. It was like, this would have been 4 years ago now, 4-ish, 3 or 4, something like that.
Has used the whole of government, weaponized the whole of government in order to try to silence and coerce their critics. There is no doubt about it. The FCC commissioner coming out and directly saying, we can do this the easy way or the hard way. That is overt jawboning. That is overt threats to media companies. Then you have the lawsuits that are used to basically extract a bribe to coerce these media organizations. And then you have mass consolidation in the hands of Trump political allies. That's what's going on. So the First Amendment is under attack in a way we have never seen before, going back even to the days of George W. Bush and the Patriot Act and that surveillance,
Krystal,
which I also objected to, by the way.
Krystal, it's interesting to me that when I show you all of the...
I'm guessing she's going to be like, all of the one time that the Biden administration did something that was like pretty controversial to stop a pandemic from getting worse. And then Krystal's like, here's a fucking dozen, like actually a dozen things that the Trump administration has engaged in that has demonstrably deteriorated free speech rights in this country. And also, I oppose that thing from the Biden administration. Tomi Lahren's still going to be like, curious, you claim to oppose this, and yet your guy did whatever.
Censorship from the Biden administration, which I'm glad that you disagreed with. But when I show you like concrete examples of they did this, they did that, Hunter Biden laptop impacted an election, right? All the COVID misinformation.
When I show you all these concrete examples, such as this thing that I alluded to one time and provided no substantiation for. Perfect, no notes. Absolutely perfect depiction of conservatism.
Information you couldn't, they pressured YouTube, Google, every single one of them was pressured, and these companies are coming out and saying we are pressured to deplatform people, to lock people out of the accounts, delete accounts, reduce people on these platforms during COVID, calling it misinformation, disinformation. We have concrete examples of this, but then you say, well, you know, because they deceptively edited that Kamala interview, and because Colbert lost his show because he lost money, and because Kimmel was off the air for 5 days. That's your example of like the government's cracking down on free speech.
The fuck is she talking about? Legitimately, what is... I mean, they just talked about Kimmel and Colbert, but like what? Great, good.
When I have an actual example of they actually silence people. Here it is. Citizens, content creators, influencers, politicians, doesn't matter. They did all...
Damn, that's crazy because Krystal provided examples of all that shit, and then you just like decided that's actually, I said all those things about individuals that I have not named once or some shit like that. I recognize that it's possible that she like brought this up in the beginning section, but that's fucking 3 minutes of her yapping about like hating Democrats, and so I've like, never mind the fact that there's not even enough time for her to talk in any sort of detail about that. I don't believe her.
All these things, and you're like, but Colbert and Kimmel, you know, you see why it's hard for me to believe you when you're like, the First Amendment is now under attack.
It's hard for me when you spoke out against those things under the Biden administration and you have nothing to say about what's happening with the Trump administration. Look at the way they are trying to designate speech as
Actually, that's not entirely true. She doesn't have nothing to say about the Trump administration decimating free speech. She likes the fact that the Trump administration is decimating free speech and just doesn't want you to you know, call her on it. She doesn't want to be socially penalized in any way for being a fascist who hates you and life and doesn't believe in anything. Effectively, she's cry-bullying. She's a whiny bitch baby. Just like all the rest of them. You know, birds of a feather, something, something.
Material support.
I think I'll maybe try to watch to the end of the Antifa violence and labels section. You can see this right here. It ends at about 20 minutes. And then I'll be done with stream.
For terrorism.
You know?
Pam Bondi coming out and saying the exact woke thing that I'm sure you objected to in the past.
And I did disagree with that when Pam
did
Bondi
you
came out and
then?
said, yeah, I
when
disagree.
Trump came out and said the exact same thing and said you're not allowed to criticize me.
No, he
That's
did not say that.
Speech.
He never said
Yes,
that.
He did.
said
He
we're cracking
literally
down
did.
on
He did say that. I saw the video clip. It was actually like really funny and like the most unintentionally revealing thing I think I had ever seen. Like, oh wow, that's crazy that they feel comfortable like admitting that or whatever, you know?
Antifa and
You can
domestic
go look it up.
terrorists. Do you not?
You can look it up.
I guess I would ask you this: do you not think that Antifa and their tactics, which I've seen firsthand, do you not think Antifa and the things that they pull, particularly in places like Seattle and Portland, do you not see that as domestic?
Bro, they are still on about that. That was 5 fucking years ago. Oh no, there was like, I don't know, a kind of crazy block party where left-wing protesters were. Okay? Jesus. Like, a little bit of property damage happens in a large-scale national protest movement one time in one city, and conservatives can't shut the fuck up about it for half a decade or more. Meanwhile, the right-wing president can literally say, you can't criticize me, you can't say mean things, because that's mean, sorry, that's not protected by the First Amendment. And, like, they'll be like, no, he didn't say that, actually. Fucking pigeon on a chessboard ass looking ass. You know what I mean?
Terrorism.
I think crime is crime and should be dealt with as such. But in the same way that I objected to the mass surveillance of the Bush administration and the expansion of the terror state apparatus that has occurred ever since then, I vociferously object to this attempt to use Palantir to surveil everything that all of us say for wrongthink. God forbid that we criticize.
I can't. It looks like I was literally just about to say, I can't wait for her to fucking defend Palantir. Like, holy shit.
Criticize Israel. God forbid that we criticize what ICE is doing. That's the regime that they're putting into place, Tommy. I mean, that's what they are trying to effectuate right now.
Well, I disagree with you on that
student
point,
visa
but I don't
holders
agree
because
with
they were the lowest hanging.
I don't agree with you. Wait, so then you do agree? So her defense is like, no, that's not happening or something. Like, no, Palantir isn't real, silly.
Yeah, they were the lowest hanging fruit, and now it's coming for American citizens who also, by the way, are being caught up in these immigration raids as well. So this isn't just staying with, the people you might be more comfortable with. This has huge impacts on all of us, and especially as people who make our living through our—
Yeah, but she doesn't care, because as long as the people she doesn't like get caught in it, it's like, it's fine.
our ability to speak and to say at times provocative things. Like, that's part of the job. And that's exactly what this administration is really trying to go after.
Krystal, I'm
and
not
make
disagreeing
sure,
with
not
you.
Not that nobody won't be able to say anything, but that they have to think twice. I mean, you mentioned Google and YouTube, and then I'll shut up and let you say the next thing. But they just had to do some, multi-million-dollar settlement and basically pay tribute to the Trump administration because they want to make sure their deals can go through and they get their tax breaks or whatever it is that they want. That's what all of these companies are doing, and we are totally dependent on these big companies.
You are saying that.
Damn, that's crazy. You say that companies are only looking out for their bottom line. Yeah, sure, bitch. Let me point you exactly to the part in the law where it says that that's what companies do. People might not know this. Companies such as ABC, such as CBS, such as Netflix, Palantir, whatever it is, are legally obligated to prioritize their bottom line when they are acting in self-interest in very destructive ways that harm the rest of the country but pad their bottom line. The law tells them to do that. That is what the law says about companies in America, in plenty of countries, actually. That's kind of part and parcel to capitalism, where you have companies and stuff like that. You get in trouble when you're not engaging in your fiduciary responsibility to, it's either like the shareholders or the owners or whatever. You say this, yeah, sure. Fucking, do you want me to bring up the US code that says that? That's how this works. That's how this has always worked for as long as there have been companies to be governed by that part of the US code. That's more of an explanation than I even need to provide, because these people transparently don't believe jack shit.
Companies actually came out and said Biden administration pressured us to remove this, and that. But you are just assigning that to these companies because you believe
that was reported within Disney. No, that's not true. That was reported about the deliberations with regard to Jimmy Kimmel.
So why
they
is
didn't
he
actually
back
have a problem with what he said.
Because all these Americans now, his ratings are back in the tank.
Because 1.7 million.
Yeah, now the ratings are back in the tank.
People canceled Disney Plus.
Yeah, the reason that Disney canceled Jimmy Kimmel was because they're trying to look out for their bottom line. That merger, or between, I think it was ABC and some other company, would be really good for the bottom line of ABC and Disney. When they realized that they fucked up and they lost a shit ton of subscriptions, that was bad for their bottom line. So they made a decision to try to reverse that effect. Both times, they're just acting to try to pad their bottom line, to get revenue, to get money. That's what companies do. But because Tomi Lahren, hates you and hates liberalism and hates anybody that believes in anything, not in the cool based way of hating liberalism either. She hates the good parts of liberalism. She has to pretend that you're lying about fucking business operations that happen every day all over the world, and that capitalism would instantly sputter and die without. I fucking hate conservatives.
Yeah, the ratings are back in the tank.
I hate having
that great big boost. And
correction. Sometimes I love conservatives because it's entertaining as hell to be like, what? My actions have consequences. It's fun to watch them be like that. But, God, I hate listening to them.
And then, boom, his audience left again. And they will. And I'm all for him being on air.
Tommy,
I think he should be. I think he should fail on his own, Krystal.
Jimmy Kimmel in ages.
No shit.
I don't know what he has to say.
Nobody is.
It's fine. Obviously, these are all dinosaurs.
Jimmy Kimmel is low ratings. Got him, liberal. Like I said, complete airhead, no engagement with the points being made or anything.
Programs that are going to go away eventually. It's about the principle. I've stood up where a lot of people during the Biden years that I have no ideological agreement with whatsoever, because it's the principle of protecting free speech, protecting the First Amendment, even the right to say things that are offensive to people, that are provocative, that are outrageous. And so if you have a government that is trying to weaponize all of their agencies to try to chill speech
that's where you
and
lose
coerce the
That's
media.
I don't think that they're doing.
I don't think they're doing that because I like what they're doing. And when I like what they're doing, that means they can't be doing a bad thing. Honestly, I might even just end it there because, like, I'm subjecting myself to a far-right NPC dialogue tree. What do they even talk about? Crime, cities, public safety. We've already heard everything they could possibly be talking about here. Fairness in the military. They already talked about the military. I can expect her to say, yeah, get the transes out of the military, something. They're all mentally ill. Also, the military should serve the president because he's awesome and the president, and that's the way it should be, or something. Arrest of, I'm guessing there was like a public official that was undocumented or that the right alleges was undocumented. They're gonna be like, yeah, arresting people with the Department of Immigration Customs Enforcement is good, actually. And then they talk about Zohran Mamdani in New York City. Zohran hates America, blah, blah, blah. No, actually rent freezes with accompanied by like affordable housing projects is good. There's data to show that. No, okay, I've basically summed up how the entire rest of the video is gonna go. I really don't feel like watching that, so I'm gonna finish the last fucking 54 seconds of this, and then I'm done.
Doing that. Now, I believe in free speech. I don't believe that Kimmel or Colbert were taken off the air because of President.
Say that again?
I believe in free speech. I don't believe that Kimmel.
Oh, okay. For a second I thought she said, I don't believe in free speech. And I was going to be like, you know?
Or Colbert were taken off the air because of President Trump. I don't believe you on that. But you're talking about speech, and I agree with you on speech, all right? Mm-hmm. I believe you should be able to say provocative things. I think that there is a limit when it comes.
You should be able to say racist things, but you shouldn't be able to say anti-racist things, is the position of Tomi Lahren.
To credible threats. But outside of that, I'm more talking about, you mentioned the National Guard and the troops, and I asked you about Antifa. I'm talking about actions now. I'm not talking about words. I'm talking about actions. When Antifa goes out on the street and they light things on fire, or they're firebombing and
thing that happened maybe once, like, oh, Antifa went, no, it was one dude, probably, like, I think a storefront, like, or something, some minor bit of property was lit on fire one time in the 2020 protests, where protests were erupting in every major city in America, and the right wing has not shut the fuck up about it in 5 years. I am begging conservatives to be normal human beings that understand that, like, yeah, when you have a really big protest movement, sometimes bad things happen. But again, it's just like, they just don't agree with the objective of the protest movement, so they want to be like, see, they're violent and destructive. You can tell because in the course of millions of people mobilizing to protest over the course of, like, I don't know, a year and a half, one violent incident occurred that we can refer to. Pay no mind to January 6th, which was based in Red Pill, but also done by Antifa feds. Or, you know, the numerous assassination attempts that have been carried out by right-wingers against other right-wingers, or the fact that a right-winger somehow acquired police gear, actual honest-to-God police gear, and assassinated state-level Democratic lawmakers. Yeah, don't worry about all of that. Somebody lit a storefront on fire one time during the biggest protests, some of the biggest protests that America has ever seen. So that means that you're violent, actually, and we're justified in killing our political opposition. Need I remind you also that this was not the flurry of political assassinations in 2024 and 5 were not the first time that we've seen this either. I remember doing a video way back in the day where a Texas Republican legitimately hired a hitman to kill his political opponent. He lost that race, but he hired a hitman. He hired a hitman to kill a Democratic politician at the local level. Nothing. Nobody talked about it. And then the right wing joked about fucking Paul Pelosi getting attacked. These people hate you. And they don't believe in anything except you dying. And they will kill themselves to see that happen.
Nice facility. Things of that nature. Do you not think that the National Guard might be helpful in deterring some of that violence, not just to protect the federal agents?
What violence?
But also the federal buildings, and I don't know, maybe make the
fuck federal agents. That is my position on this. I mean that in multiple senses of the word. Feds, hit me up in the DMs.
area a little bit safer for the businesses and others that are operating in that vicinity to be able to carry about their daily business without being antagonized by freaks who consider themselves to be Antifa warriors?
First of all, let's talk a little.
By the way, the right wing is the only faction that has ever used the term Antifa warriors. Antifa is it's the last point that I'll leave on is very characteristic of the right wing to engage with Antifa as though it's some sort of military, like paramilitary organization that has a command structure and gives orders from the top down, because that's all they're capable of understanding. But Antifa, more so than anything, is like a movement, like a very highly decentralized movement of people who have a belief in common that fascism is bad. And the reason it's highly decentralized is because it's made up of fucking anarchists. Like me. Kind of. Like, it's not some Soviet Order of the Red Banner shit, whatever, like, Police Red Guard Corps, whatever the fuck they had over there. It's a bunch of people who go to protests and show up and, like, I don't know, lock arms when ICE tries to, like, arrest somebody. Anyway, I'm done with this. That's all I can stomach of conservative. But by the way, titan of conservative thought, by the way. This legitimately, like, this is some of the best that conservatism has to offer the political discussion. That is what passes for intellectual, like, engagement in the world of conservative ideology. Anyway, Krystal Ball is great. She did great. That was so painful that I couldn't watch the rest of it because Tomi Lahren is so dumb. It makes my head hurt, makes my stomach hurt. I'm also, like, hungry, so. And this game is more important than listening to anything that Tomi Lahren has to say. I keep doing that. Tomi, whatever the fuck. Well, her name's not important enough. She doesn't mean enough to me. Sorry, you're not like that. For me to, like, worry about getting her name right. I'm just gonna alternate back and forth forever. Fuck it. Shoutouts to the YouTube homies if that becomes a video. Anyway, again to reiterate the purpose of that. The purpose was to engage in the collective humiliation ritual of Tomi Lahren. And not necessarily to learn anything from it, because there's nothing to learn from conservatives except for the mass psychology of conservatives and alternatively the median voter. In parentheses, derogatory. Anyways, it's good to be back. Cut it there, future me. Thanks for watching, and support the channel if you would be so kind.